Hello, my favorite students in global poverty. Most of you are really, truly my favorite students. And I'm excited that we get to spend this semester together. I'm disappointed that I probably won't get to see you face to face much. However, if you're on campus, I say we meet up and do some of this in person, and we'll figure out how to do that. I don't know the rules yet. I never want to break a rule. But I'm going to see what we can do to have good conversation about these important readings. I think on my syllabus, on my blackboard, at least the names I see today, I know most of you, if not all of you, and you know me and you know how I run my class. Now, global poverty is a special topics class, and especially because we're not together in person, I'm really turning it into a heavy-duty readings course. I will tell you, if you are taking this class for fun, it's not fun. This is graduate level reading. I've had multiple students go to graduate studies and send back that they're reading these courses in their graduate work. I think of a gal who just graduated from Columbia University with a master's in human rights and international something. And 4 or 5 of the books that we've used in this and a couple other classes were on her syllabi and reading lists at Columbia. So these are heavy-duty readings. So this is not the I'm a senior and I just want to have fun class. Now, if you are taking it and you don't have to have it for credit towards your major or your minor, you may want to take it credit, no credit. Then you don't have to worry about A, B, C. As long as you get a C or higher, you get credit. I always say that, and then the people who are worried about their grades are the people who always get A's. So who knows? But if reading is not your thing, this is not the class for you. This is the hardest reading class I have. It's even hard reading for me. I do want to quickly walk through the syllabus, although I'm not going to do the thoroughness that I do with other syllabi because most of you have had my classes before, so you know the drill. I'm slowly going down here. You know who I am. I will put my little video over my face. There we go. In any special topics course, we have to be flexible because it's a special topics. We're covering whatever we can, and it depends on who's in the class and how long we want to discuss certain things. Certainly, we're in an election year where poverty is a big, big, big issue. We're in a COVID year where the effects of COVID are felt very differently by the poor than they are by the wealthy. Education has changed, even as you're experiencing right now, and issues of access to education and technology are deeply rooted in economics. And so we have a lot of weird things to consider this semester that we wouldn't have considered in other semesters. So I just don't know exactly how fast we'll move through stuff. But I do know what are the best books on poverty, and so I've chosen them. The End of Poverty is a classic in poverty studies. It was kind of the Bible of poverty studies of the last 15 or so years, and it's just one of those that will always be mentioned. And when you read the next few books, they will always reference back to The End of Poverty by Jeff Sachs. He is an excellent scholar. He is certainly alive and well and speaks at the biggest of the big events. He has Facebook and posts that he makes, and you will definitely want to friend him on Instagram or whatever you're doing with social media because he's very insightful. He speaks a lot about current political issues, about COVID, about development. He's considered a preeminent thinker on development. And so Jeff Sachs is just someone we need to know, and you'll read his book. It's a hefty book. If you've already bought it, you'll know it's a hefty economics kind of book. If you haven't bought it, you need to buy it. It should be available used for very inexpensive, but do get it right away. The next book we'll read is The Bottom Billion by Paul Collier. Like Sachs, Paul Collier is probably the next most important guy in the poverty conversation as far as he's a statistician, economist statistician, who comes to the study of poverty a little differently than economic development, but he just crunches the numbers. But he's a very likable little guy. He's British, looks a little bit like a gnome. We'll watch some of him, some videos of him. And he is that guy who, he'll be like, oh yeah, when I was working with the president of Zambia. And then the next chapter is like, oh, well, I was with Bono. He just rolls in those worlds. Both Sachs and Paul Collier are those guys who consult and really make policy and have think tanks related to poverty. So you need to know them. If someone said, oh, you took a course on poverty, what do you think about Sachs? You should know who that is. The Locust Effect by Gary Haugen. Many of you know Gary Haugen because I've used his textbook, Good News About Injustice, in current events. The Locust Effect is not like Good News About Injustice. The Locust Effect is heady, high-shelf research, and it is outstanding research, recognized now internationally as kind of the latest, greatest on poverty and violence and the effect of violence on poverty. And you'll read through that fascinating book. The Unheard Truth, get it if you can. It should be very, very inexpensive, but please don't go out and spend $30-40 on it. I think there's only one chapter that you have to have, and if you can't get the book, you could come and borrow mine, or we'll figure out something. I think I have some chapters that I would like you to outline. Irene Kahn represents the human rights approach to poverty, and that's what's really important. We have an economist, we have a development expert, we have a human rights Christian lawyer. We need to hear from the human rights world, and Kahn is very influential in Amnesty International. I believe she was a regional director for the United Nations, and her chapter on slums is outstanding. One of the best studies of slums I've ever read. So do get this book. I don't remember if the bookstore was able to get it or not, but between us all, we'll get it. Then, this summer, I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate for you, I picked up this book that I've been meaning to read for a while now, called Our Kids, the American Dream in Crisis, by Putnam. Putnam is, I believe, a Harvard sociologist or economist, I forget, but he's a big, big name. He wrote the best-selling book Bowling Alone, which came out, I don't know, in the 90s or 2000s. It was before I did my graduate work, but my doctoral work, and I used Putnam a lot in my dissertation because he was looking at American religion and stuff. So this massive study, when you have the budget that he has to hire graduate assistants and research assistants, and there's like 100 of them named in the book, you can get a lot of data. And so it's an outstanding collection of data related to poverty in America. So these are global poverty. This is an amazing book about domestic poverty. I think it's particularly important this semester where, again, we have political decisions to make, policy decisions to make, ideas about the common good that COVID has brought to the table. So we're going to read that book. It's top shelf again. So this is just a heavy-duty reading semester. And then I will post videos and articles that I need you to read or watch to augment all of this. All right. The course requirements, you should read through this. Most of you have had a class with me, and you just got to show up. Colin, that's you. And I need you to show up ready to engage. With a readings course, some days I'm just going to say, okay, I ask you to read these 5 chapters. Let's start with chapter 1. What's significant? And I really need for you to be able to lead and contribute to good discussion about what you are learning. Throughout this syllabus, I have key quotes about poverty, and we'll talk about those, but I just think they're super important as we think through poverty. Again, reading, you're responsible. Each week I will see how we're doing and how much we can read, and then I'll say, okay, for next week I'd like us to read these chapters in this book, get the reading guides done. Most of you know that drill. I always either have a reading guide that you need to do or what I call graded notes, where I just tell you to outline or take notes on the chapters, and then I look at those and make sure that you've read them all and gotten the key points and give you a grade. I don't typically do reading quizzes, although I also don't typically teach online, and so who knows what we're going to need to do. So if I do feel that there is not adequate motivation or stress about getting reading done, I can employ reading quizzes, in which case you would use all of your own notes, so that's no problem. Normally, those of you who've been with me know that we would watch a lot of videos together in class, and I would stop them and talk about things that are being said, and we will do some of that in our class time together, but we probably are not going to have as much time together as we would. It'll just feel different. We have a shortened semester, so I'm going to have to post some of them online, and then you'll watch them on your own time. Maybe I can arrange some, like come over to my house and we'll view them together, viewing parties for those of you who are local, but we won't take class time to watch all of them that we might have. In which case, I'll post those, you'll watch them, take some notes, submit those so I can give you credit for taking in that information. I love videos because they keep us current. Books, by the time they get published, they're still good and true, but sometimes they get a little outdated. With TED Talks or quick documentaries, we can keep up to date with, COVID in the slums, how India's poor are coping with no health care or whatever. We can really keep up to date on that. So that's what these will be. And as we move through our first weeks, I'm going to encourage you, if you're finding those important videos and posts and podcasts, that you'll let me know and I'll post them and we'll keep up together. Classroom etiquette. This is really different than when we're in class together, where I just have to warn you not to kiss and stuff. So we're going to have different things we have to do. Hang on, I gotta scooch this up. I kind of hate this whole technology thing. All right. So in the spring, when we had no warning about finishing the semester online, it was kind of cute that people would be in bed or have their dog or whatever. But we're not there anymore. We're in the fall now, and this is how we're doing semester. And I need you to make a space that is professional, that is academic, that is conducive to learning. And that means there shouldn't be a dog or a cat roaming around and barking or meowing or up on you. That means your bird shouldn't be squawking. If you have kids, they need to have some sort of child care that doesn't involve you. You shouldn't be driving. You shouldn't be swimming, exercising. In other words, pretend like you're actually being paid to be at work, and you need to appear at work and in full professional mode. And please keep your camera on at all times, because otherwise I'm teaching to nobody. And if your camera's on, I can know that you're connecting and engaging. We're such a small little class, it should have plenty of bandwidth for us to all be on. And we'll work out the kinks of how to make it seem engaging once we're all together on WebEx. And as usual, if I'm discontent with your presence or lack thereof, I remove attendance. So attendance is a big part of it, 40%, right? In a special topics like this, I don't know what we're going to talk about on any given day. I have a few PowerPoints and we'll go over them, but a lot of the time it's just, we're going to talk about what we read, and I need you to participate. So between just being with us when we're having our classes online and contributing down here, that's half of your grade. So if you're the kind of person who's good at showing up, this is very good news. If you're the kind of person who isn't good at showing up, this could be your cue to drop. No, don't drop. Just show up. What else do you have to do? All the other stuff is closed. The other half of the course is you've got to read. I have already said this is a heavy-duty graduate level reading course. I need you to plug away and get this reading done. And then, as I said, sometimes I'll post videos, TED Talks, podcast, whatever comes up that will be helpful to us. I'll post those, and those will also have an assessment so that I can know that you've done those. I do post everything in Blackboard, all your links, all your grades, all your attendance, everything will be in Blackboard. So stay connected to me on Blackboard. You guys aren't cheaters. I'm not worried about that. I know all of you. You don't need to do makeup work. I didn't change this. This year I've been here 25 years. No longer 23. 25 whole years. But even 25 years later, just do your work on time. It makes all of our lives easier. All right, some interesting stats. We'll go over some of the stats about poverty as we move through our class. All of these quotes are by people that you'll need to know. So John Perkins, really, really important guy on U.S. poverty and racial reconciliation. He's as old as the hills. I expect him to die any day now. He may have already died in the last few weeks, but I mean, he's really old. But he's got the Perkins Center, and he was a colleague and friend of Martin Luther King Jr., and his area is really poverty among minorities, particularly African American. And how community development. In fact, he's the founder of CCDA, which is the Christian Community Development Association. He's written many books related to development, and since the 1960s has really been at the forefront of urban development, particularly in hard-hit areas of gentrification and racial segregation. I don't know if some of you remember in ethics class, you read Tim Keller's book on generous justice, which if you hadn't already read that, I would have made that an assignment for this course. But since most of you have already read that in another course of mine, we don't assign it here. But he had that chapter on John Perkins stuff about relocation, reneighboring, all that. That's this John Perkins. That's a free bit of information for you right there. I love it that the scriptures are full of concern for the poor. The Bible is not just a social development program, but it certainly is a wonderful instruction manual on God's intention for his people to care for the poor. And we can't wiggle out of that. And I love it that the Psalm says that because of God's love and concern specifically for the poor will be glad. And that the Lord gives special ear, or gives a big ear, to the needy and to those who cry out. And we'll talk about theology of poverty as we go through. Some of you in ethics, we've already done some of that, but we'll revisit it because it's one of the main themes, if not the main theme of the Bible, is God's generous justice, particularly for the needy. All right, here's my COVID disclaimer that is showing up in now all of my syllabi. It basically says, there's no guarantees. It used to be, we could say, oh, this syllabus is your contract. Nope, this syllabus might be invalid tomorrow. We learned in the spring, nothing is guaranteed, and so this is how I'm hoping or thinking the semester will go, but you all know I have goodwill toward you. In fact, some of you I love dearly and, would give you my kidney if you needed it. So you're not going to be nervous, but we're just going to have to be super flexible. Now, I can only be flexible, you and I can only be flexible if we have some structure that can flex. You think about California, we have earthquakes. What do you need for a building to be able to tolerate the flexing of an earthquake? You need a seriously strong structure. And so I always tend to be a little loosey-goosey, like, oh, just get it turned in when you can. Nope. I think that will not do us much good. I think that's not a service to you. Under these circumstances, I need to be pretty hard and fast on deadlines so that we don't get behind. You don't get behind. We're ending before Thanksgiving. We do not want Thanksgiving to be your worst week ever. So I'm going to really try to press you to be on time with everything so that if you get the COVID or I get the COVID or another city blows up like it did in Beirut, we have enough structure that we can flex and we don't just have a big hot mess. So please put this in your brain or on a sticky note that in this class, deadlines do matter. Toward that end, I will penalize late work. Somewhere in here it talks about 7% per day. The reason I use that is that way after 1 week, 7 days, you've lost half of the credit. That should motivate you to get stuff done on time. If a week later it's only worth half credit. And so with the reading, we'll negotiate what's a fair amount to read in a week, but once we've negotiated that, you need to get it done. The rest of the syllabus are just ideas I've had about the kinds of stuff we're going to be thinking about. I've only taught this, 3 or 4 times now. I guess that's more than I thought. And each time I adjust it. So, I don't know. We'll see what we cover. All right, my favorites. Thanks for being in my class. Thanks for being willing to read tough stuff with me. I hope you write down all your questions, and that first day of class we'll jib-jab about it. All righty. See you soon.